Hello everybody, I'm creating this new video to help us adjust to our new server, which has been giving us some challenges, but we have worked out all the technical details to allow you guys to do your database work, and thus the recording of this video. What I'm going to start with is first the need to connect to our database server on Prometheus, and I want you to notice the URL here. And with our new server, we are running in SSL mode, which is going to be kind of a requirement for a lot of web servers moving forward. So the HTTPS is at the beginning of it. Should auto-negotiate if you skip that. But basically the address is prometheus.gtc.edu/phpMyAdmin, which will drop you into the web-based interface for the MySQL server that's loaded up on the Prometheus server. You will have been given a username and password for the database on Prometheus, which will be loaded into your grade book inside of this course. So that's one thing that you can do preemptively here. So you can go right here to your grades, and then you will see a listing, and I'll click on it because you won't see anything here on mine, but right at the top you'll have a couple little listings here for Prometheus. At the very least, you'll have the Prometheus MySQL password. And the thing that you should know about these logins is the regular FTP login for doing standard, web page work may be one password, and then your Prometheus password will be different. We're doing that for security reasons. And the passwords are now complex, so they have special characters, upper, lowercase, and numbers all required in there, and a certain string length, which I think is 8 characters, but you will check here to get that. Usually this will be in the format of username/password or username pipe password. And so please check here for that information. If it seems to not be working, contact your instructor, whoever that may be, probably me if you're watching this video. All right, the next thing that you need to do is once you are logged in, so I'm going to go ahead and log in, and what you're going to see here is basically an interface for this tool called phpMyAdmin. This is not part of the MySQL server program. This is actually an independent piece of software, which is technically a DBMS, a database management system, which is web-based, and the majority of people who do web work and interface with databases use this particular tool to work with the MySQL databases, also with the clone Maria databases, which we see on a lot of web hosts. And speaking of web hosts, when you do go out there and work professionally and you're working on professional hosting platforms, this is kind of the default and de facto tool. So it's really kind of good to get to know it. The first thing that we're going to do here is just kind of explore the environment a little bit. You see you connect up and you get this generic screen. In the left sidebar, what you will see is a listing of your account and the databases attached. And you can see I have a few of them in here already. By default, all of the databases will be prefixed with your username and then an underscore for any tables or databases that you create. And we do this to help, make them unique within the system so we know which one belongs to who. And you should only be able to see your own databases in the list here. If you're seeing a huge list, that means your account's not set up correctly. So contact whoever the server admin is at the time. Right now it's Christian Herr, but you can also reach out to any of us instructors for help with that as well. The first step that we're going to perform here is to create a database so that we can do our test application. And once we get that test application working, we can then move on to doing the homework for the chapter. So by clicking on this first tab up here at the top called databases, you'll see an interface that first shows all the databases that you have within your account, and then gives you a tool to create a new one. And that's what I'm going to do here. And because I've been testing, you can see I already have one called tests. So I'm going to actually create a database called, I don't know, something silly, like what I usually do is like whatever, right? And you notice how I added that to the end of the string. We want to preserve the username and underscore in the prefix. No other settings need to be made here. We just simply click create. If you are watching some of the older videos, which may still exist in the core shell, we used to have to do this from the command line. It was just a security step on the previous servers, both Apollo and Kronos required that we do it. In in developing this new server, we decided that it was better to allow students to do it through this interface. This is really the way that you would do it professionally anyhow. Very rarely would you go to a prompt. Yes, that's a great skill to have, but hey, if you have a graphical tool where you can just type it in like that, hit a button and create a database, why not use it? All right, so that's what we did. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to jump over to this SQL tab. And what this tab allows us to do is to write regular SQL statements like you learned in your database class, where you can do any database work. So any database command that you would type, you can drop it in here, hit the little go button down here in the corner, and execute the command. Now, what we've done in the core shell here in Unit 4 is I created an updated set of instructions, and you'll notice that there's a couple of files here. And the first file that we want to grab is the staff SQL file. Now you can either right click and download it, or you can actually click on it like this. And normally this would pop into a text editor. So whatever you have as a text editor, it doesn't matter how you look at this as long as you can get to the text. The point is we're going to grab this code and drop it right into that SQL window. What the code does, as you can probably see already if you know anything about databases, is it creates a table named staff with a bunch of fields and settings, and then inserts 2 records into that table. So we have a test table that we can work with in our test connection scripts. So here we go with that little query. We're just going to hit the go button, and then you'll see if it is successful, you get a bunch of green boxes that say, hey, it worked, all the individual commands that you ran. Of course, I can come back here now and notice in the tree view on the side that there is a staff table. So I can click on my database, I can see the table. If I click on browse for the table, I can actually see that the data is inserted. Now, really kind of interesting and important note, you can use this interface. Like if you want to add more entries, it's pretty darn easy to do. So you can come back here, to the master database list, and next to the table, you'll see that there's an insert command. So you can actually kind of orchestrate an insert by just typing values into these boxes and hitting go, or you can do it through SQL statements if you're more familiar with that. And what's kind of neat about this tool is it has, query building tools, so for example, if I wanted to orchestrate an insert command, I would just hit insert. You notice what it does, it builds the thing for me, and then you just drop your data in. It's kind of cool. I'm not going to use that tool right now. We're going to try to be doing all this stuff through code anyhow and not manually. But often, for a web developer, when you're having problems with web-based applications, you can sometimes get into that database and make tweaks manually to fix things. And I've done that many times professionally. So it's a really good skill to know and a tool to kind of get familiar with. Well, now that we have the stuff in the database, we're ready to actually write code. And what I've done here, and this will be attached to that sample as well, is this simple JDBC file. So you will want to grab and download that from that listing in the core shell, open it up, come into Eclipse or whatever your IDE is, and create a new project. Now, I've done that here. I put this in chapter 34. So I created a chapter 34 project. You should know how to create projects by now. And then I also created a class file called simple JDBC, and I do that to match the code that's provided. Once you have this code, open it up in a text editor or drag and drop it right into the project, and just make sure that the name of the class file matches, of course, the name of the Java file. And then we're going to come in here and make a couple of changes to the code. So if you've we're working off of old videos and tried some of this already and just making tweaks, make sure that you notice that there's an updated JDBC driver script. So that CJ was added in there, which wasn't there before with the old version of MySQL. That's not probably as critical as this piece, which is to make sure that your username and database name are correct. Now you can see I will need to change mine because I created a new database called whatever. So this is going to change to whatever. And then my username and password. And yes, you do put these in plain text. Be really careful not to delete some of these weird extra characters in here, like the question mark and the ampersand, because these are parts of the way the connection script works. So you just simply change your username, your database name, and then your password. And yes, that is my password for my account on Prometheus's database. And if you're having problems with your account, feel free to use the ones you see on the screen here, at least to test the connection, because they should work. From there, kind of give you the anatomy of how this works. We first issue a command to load the driver, and then we use our console, not GUI, to just put a little message down in the console saying, okay, well, the driver loaded, it's working. Then we get the connection going. So this script actually connects to the server with the database name, username, and password. And if it works, we'll hit this line. So this will appear in the console as well. And you can see I already have those messages down here from earlier testing. Then as we move through the code, we create a container to hold query statements. And if that successfully works, we also get another message to the console. From there, we actually run our query, and you'll notice that the query is inserted into the statement structure. And it's the same kind of query that we would run in any query window. And what we're really trying to do is just pull basic information from the table. So we have, you can see here, ID, last name, first name, middle initial, address, city, state, telephone, and email. And we are running a query back in our code to basically pull just first, middle, and last name from the staff table where the last name equals Smith. And provided it connects up and everything, if these three statements work, the query really should be working at that point. This will return the results, and since we pre-built the data for you, it should return 2 results, and you should see something that looks like this in your window when it comes back. So like if you see this load up when you run the program, things are working correctly. The one big caveat before you run this connection is you do have to be connected to the campus VPN. So you can see down here in my taskbar that I am connected. I go ahead and pre-create VPN accounts for everybody when this class starts at the beginning of the semester. And just make sure that you fire up that connection first. And for instructions on how to install VPN for Gateway, there's a separate posting in the course shell that walks you through that process. So that's a whole separate thing. So please, look at the information on that. And if you get stuck on doing any of that, just please reach out to your instructor and have them help you. But make sure that's connected, because if this is not connected, we do not allow remote connections to our database, which is behind a firewall, without the VPN. The VPN, in essence, what it does is it gives you a campus IP address and encrypts your connection to campus so that whatever you're doing is secure. So we want to maintain that. And you'll find that when you do professional application work, this is going to be the case anyhow. People don't want anybody connecting to their databases, so they're secured usually with multiple measures. So passwords that are complex with different usernames and passwords than other accounts, and then usually requiring a secure tunnel. And that's really what VPN is. It creates an encrypted channel to the server. I'm going to go ahead and hit the run button, and you'll see here, yes, it has to save, that it will load the driver, the database connected, the statement was created, and the query results were returned. So that successfully was able to talk to the server, run a query through our code, and then bring back the results to our screen. So if you were able to do this, you succeeded. If you struggled with any part of it and need help, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help guide you on this. It is a little tricky the first couple times you do it. One last important note, the stuff that we're doing, especially on these 2 lines, is pretty critical. And so whenever you're looking at maybe older videos of me doing examples, the one thing that that is critical is the fact that you need to update whatever the old versions are to this. And the reason for that is we had a jump in the MySQL version from version 5 to version 8. I don't know why the numbers are so big, but that's the jump that we made. And version 8 requires a different approach to connecting. So make sure that the driver is listed like this, and that your calls with your username, password, and database are listed like this. The other piece that I forgot to mention, and I'm kind of kicking myself now for not bringing this up, in a more logical sequence. So if you guys are like, hey, it still doesn't work, here's a piece that I forgot to mention earlier in progress, because I kind of take it for granted, is up here in the project menu, you will need to hit the properties tab, go to the left side menu called Java Build Path, and you'll need to add this tool, which I've pre-done. So this is kind of my bad, and I apologize for this. The way that you add this tool is first go back to the core shell and download it from the instruction set that you're reading. That'll be attached both to the instruction set and to the assignment. Once you have that file on your machine, you want to click this button here to add an external jar, find it on your system, click open, and then it'll pop up in this libraries tab. And the libraries tab is where you want it to go. Once it's listed here, you got to click the apply button and then click OK. You got to make sure you do both of those. Don't just click OK. I don't always trust that in these dialogues, frankly. Hit apply first, then click OK. And then what you'll notice is that you'll have here this referenced library folder that will appear in your project, and the MySQL connector is now available to any code that gets dropped into this project. And without that piece, this will not work. So, if you did all the steps before and you ran it and like, oh, hey, it's not working, I got like all this error stuff in the console, this is the why. So make sure you add that connector file, and then things should work. If you still cannot connect, please reach out to me. I'll help guide you and get it to work. I know that the first connection can be difficult, but once you get it working, take pride in the fact that you're now doing something that's pretty advanced in programming, which is not only writing code, but now you're connecting to a remote resource, and you're writing an application locally that is connecting to a remote database. And that's pretty sophisticated, right? And that's what real programmers do out in the field all the time. And so this is a really important skill for our discipline. All right, reach out to me if it doesn't work, and otherwise, good luck coding. Talk to you next time.